You're listening to Level Up with Wondr, a podcast where we take listeners on a journey through the exciting world of gaming, tech, and innovation. Join the Wondr Nation team as we talk with a diverse group of pros who have taken their skills to the next level.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Level Up with Wondr. I'm Anika Howard, President and CEO of Wondr Nation. We are filming this episode in the month of June, which is Pride Month. In observation, we are highlighting the groundbreaking work of LGBTQ plus leaders in the gaming industry. I'm very excited and happy to welcome Stefy to the show. And Stefy, I can talk a little bit, but then I'd like you to fill in the gap. So this is what I know from our cyber stalking. You have decades of experience as a leader in esports, motorsports, technology, and STEM education, which is very exciting to me because I know that that's not really a kind of female-dominated area. I have friends now that are into drifting and racing, and so some of the things that I am looking at, I'm trying to get a little bit more understanding of that world. You're a 3-time motocross world champion, and even more importantly, like you're athlete, but you're kind of female founder. So founder and CEO of, and pronounce it for me.
It's Init.
Init. That's what exactly how I was saying. Init Sports, the first women-led sim racing company. So that's amazing. And through STEM-based esports education, you were providing a pathway for sim racing to real-world motorsports, introducing young people to a new career in motorsports, engineering, and data analytics. And so I think this is very, very exciting. And it's very much aligned with a lot of the things that we're trying to do from an innovation and technology standpoint here at Wondr. I always love to see women leaning into things that are non-traditional. Why don't you take us back to the beginning and talk a little bit about what drew you to motorsports? I really want to get into understanding more about your background.
All right. Anika, it's been a pleasure to be selected to be on your show. I'm very honored to be here, and I can't wait to talk to you about my career. My journey into motorsport started at a very, very young age. I was 4 years old when I looked at my mom and dad and I said, I would really like to have a motorcycle. You probably can hear that I have an accent. So I was born in Italy and I grew up in Italy. And having my parents that decided to buy me a motorcycle, it was kind of like a challenge to the institutions. Like if you can understand how Italy is and was, a very conservative country. But they did it. They did it because their little girl asked for it. So they bought me the motorcycle and I started right off the bat, kind of like knew how to do it. I had the talent. And in the very first race I competed in at 6 years old, wow. I was the only little girl with all of the little boys. I finished third overall. And after that, I won every race I entered that year. So of course you can imagine, I'm like, this is fun. I wanted to continue to do this, and bring home a trophy every weekend. So that's kind of like how it started for me. And I'm very grateful for my parents that gave me this opportunity. And therefore, I became the woman that I am today through it.
No, absolutely. I love that. For you, it sounds like that very first moment out the gate where kind of winning their place and then like, yes, I feel it. What are some of the other moments that you can think to that says, okay, these were kind of really significant points in your career?
In my career, I have quite a few pivotal moments and significant moments. Life is always up and down, and you need to try to always get the good out of the bad. The first important point for my life as a whole was when I was very young, when my parents decided to give me that chance. That put me on a trajectory to become the person that I am today. But throughout the racing career, I had a few moments, good and bad, that again, like every single one make you. That's how I like to say. So one of them, I can say, like I started winning a bunch of championships in Italy with the girls, but also I started to compete with the men when, you start to go away from the teenage year and you start to become more an adult. So there are differences. When you are a little kid, you're all the same. But then when puberty comes in, everything, it becomes a little bit more physical for the guys. They become stronger than the women. But nevertheless, I was able to win a male championship at 17 years old. That was very unheard of because it never happened before. So like even in my country, in Italy, when I did this, it was something like everybody was like, who is she? Like he's coming and beating all the boys in all of this male-dominated industry, this motorsport and motocross as a whole. After I achieved that, I became a professional athlete at that stage and then continued to compete. Now we are going from Italy to Europe. And my dream was to become the first woman ever to compete with the men at the world stage level, because it's never been done before in the history of the sport. So I was young, I was cocky, like because you have to be, it comes with the territory, you have to do it like that. There is no any other way around. So what has happened back then was that you needed to do a trial from your own country to be able to be selected and represent your country at the world stage. You needed to be with different kind of scoring method in the top 5. I got 3rd in that scoring method. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm making history. This is so cool. Well, 3 days later, the federation from Italy called me and said, you know what? We decided not to send you because you're a woman.
Wow.
Yep, exactly. So I had to kind of like digest all of that. And then I told them, you know what? I'm going to do this in my own way. So what happened is that moment that I decided to move to the United States of America. I did my first year in the US in the top ranking to be able to get those points to be considered professional. And I did it. What I wanted to say at the end of this pivotal moment, got success. I was able to be featured in video games. I was on a TV show, all here in the US. Then in 2005, the Italian Federation came to me and said, you know what? We want now to be the first woman to do what you wanted to do when you were that young. And it was amazing because my answer to them was, yes, gentlemen, this is a dream of mine. I'm going to do this, but this is how much it's going to cost you. And they paid.
Yeah. Good. I had all these questions lined up around motocross being a male-dominated sport and how did you navigate it? But you answered that question beautifully. And I think the lesson that I'm hearing is that sometimes a no isn't a no. It's just not yet, not now. And being able to do that created a much, much bigger opportunity for you.
For
and
sure.
So,
I like to say to everybody, if there is a mountain in front of you, you got to find a way. It doesn't matter which way. It can be through, underneath, around, on top, but find a way. And then sometimes it might be not the right time then, but it will come around if you stay authentic to yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's the message that I think I'm hearing loud and clear from you, that authenticity, which I always lean into because no one can be you. That is your superpower, being you unapologetically. But I think the biggest thing is perseverance, because I think so many people don't realize that the journey is hard. And sometimes it's that next moment right before you give up that is that opportunity. When you talk about some of the lessons you learned and the challenges that you had to face and overcome, what are some of the things that you did to lean into that and overcome them? And what are the lessons that you can share about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think this sport gave me the opportunity to really become a confident person. Because if you don't believe in yourself, you're not going anywhere. It's the same in life, right? Like we were just talking about being authentic and perseverance, and that's so true. To be able to grow up with that mentality, it gave me the opportunity to really see the world in that way.
Yeah.
I always like any challenge, it is a challenge because nothing comes easy in this life. But if you can keep pushing through it, be yourself, show up as you are, then the world is your oyster. The most important thing, though, is always to do it with respect. You get back what you put out. Respect the other, pay it forward, and then keep pushing.
Oh, absolutely. You have been like the driving force for women in motocross. And so how has the presence in the sports changed since you began? Like, what are some of the positive things that you've seen since when you started, when they were like, yeah, no, you're a woman, absolutely not, to
Yes.
now to have women leagues?
Yes, my journey into the sport has been very exciting because as we talked about at the beginning, I was the only one doing it. There is a sort of myth that goes with that, which is the fact that the industry were seeing me like, oh, but it's just her. Nobody else is going to come around again and do all of this. I have this inside drive that makes me do what I do in life. But I'm just a woman like any other woman out there. I just believe in myself a lot, right? But what happened is that pivotal moment when I became the first woman to compete with the men was the same year that I actually, at the end of that year, it was 2005, I actually had my career-ending injury.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
So with a career-ending injury, beside having, a very hard time at the beginning because the world that I knew collapsed on me. When you are an athlete, you never think you're going to stop doing what you are, right?
Yeah.
You're doing. So I was faced with something that from one day to the other, my life completely changed. All things that shape me in the way that I am, for sure. But to get back to your original question, by doing that, I got the opportunity then to turn negative into positive. So I was from one side of the fence where I was competing against other women, but against the men. Now I was offered a leadership position to manage the same championship I was racing with. And that was a moment in my life, but also in the sport as a whole, that changed the trajectory. At that point, I felt like I'm not your competition anymore to the other girls. I'm like a mama. So therefore, I can protect you. I can tell you how this needs to be done. All together as a group, we can be stronger than just one individual that does it, With that, we got a chance to really change the perspective of women in motocross. And then the girls started to get good salaries to compete as professional athletes, and then be able to put that in front of everybody and say, hey, I've done it. Now all of these girls are going to do it. Watch it.
And then how did that feel to go from being a competitor to now being this mentor and this kind of mama guiding all of her little chicks?
Yes.
And seeing them succeed and soar. Can you talk about kind of how that felt and that transition?
Yes, I think it's kind of like an evolution of life in a way. Yeah. I was still young. I was 28, but for the sport, it's actually already toward the end of it. So for me, it happened in the way that I had an injury. But again, being on this other position now, it felt very rewarding because before I was doing it for myself, and now I was getting the chance to do it and inspire and pay it forward to many other girls. So for me, particularly, it was very rewarding. And I hope all the other girls that got to benefit from it to feel the same too.
Oh, good. It's almost like this natural progression that you started at 6, so your entire life kind of had this. And I go back to this perseverance because you had this career-ending injury, but you're like, that's not the end of it. It's just the next pivot. It's the next thing. And how do I still lean into that authenticity, the things that you love, and how do you figure out what are the other things that will bring you joy? I love that journey and that arc. And I think that almost brings us to your current role in your current company. Can you talk about Init Esports? What is it and what do you do?
Yes. So Init Esports is a company that I opened in 2020 during the pandemic. Because the world stopped at that time, all sports were stopped. Nobody were playing sports. But Formula One was teaching everybody how the sport can be done digitally. So now you had all of the famous drivers, because they cannot be on track and they had the urge to do something, they started to do it through sim racing. At that point, there was an opportunity also for the public as a whole to compete against their idols. So I looked at that and I'm like, wait a minute, there is nothing done like this for women. So I just dive into that. And my company, which our slogan is be in it, so be part of something, be part of the change, opening up doors and opportunity and a pathway to participation for women and minority into motorsports.
No, that's great. And it sounds like in addition to that, I can imagine that it's probably an expensive hobby to have. So how does this kind of lower that traditional cost barrier, and maybe someone that, can't go directly in can have this experience? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So sim racing, the beauty of it is the fact that they definitely lower the barrier of entry. If you love the sport of motorsport and you had to start early, even if you do it with a go-kart or a dirt bike, those are expensive items. Then you add to the traveling to go to the track, the gas for the traveling and the motorcycle or the car, all the equipment, the licenses, blah, 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 blah. It turns to be a sport that is only for a few. sim racing, like even having just a simulator or even like a wheel, for instance, at home, you can imagine there is a fraction of the cost. The beauty of all of this is that it is proven, meaning that we already proved, and us specifically with an event called Screen to Speed, so from the screen to the real car, like we have proven that it is a pathway. This event that we did, it was in Las Vegas. So we invited 1,500 women from all over the world, competed online first in sim racing. The top 20, we invited them in Las Vegas during a NASCAR event. During that event, inside the pits, in the garages, we had simulators, so they competed digitally. The winner of that competition, the prize for winning that competition, was for her to test in a real Porsche 911 Cup car, so a racing car. Check this out. There was a lady from Ireland says, I don't have a driver license. So now, of course, me being me, I'm looking at her and say, I don't want to hear it. You're gonna have to do this. Like, we need to prove this, so you gotta do it. So what I ended up doing, though, I called a friend of mine that she's a professional race car driver, female, for Porsche, and I said, can you please come and be the mentor to the gamer, right? Well, in 17 laps on the track, the gamer was only 2 seconds lower than the professional race car driver. Mind blown for everybody. But the best of the best was like when she came out of the car, she says, oh, it's just like in the video game.
Love it. I love it. It's the power of technology. It's the power of some of these opportunities that give people this chance that they wouldn't otherwise have. And that these skills are very, very immediately transferable. So you have this woman, this young lady who learned in the game, didn't even have a driver's license, and then like basically is on par with a professional. That's amazing.
Yes, it's so good. But like going back to the question earlier, how we link STEM to all of this, I want to touch base on that too, because at that point with the Screen to Speed, it now has become a movement, a global movement to give the opportunity to women worldwide to enter the world of motorsport. It's heavily based on gamers, right? So people that are already into this digital environment, right? How can it be more impactful? So we came up with this program that's called Sim for STEM, where we go in schools and we use mathematics and engineering for hands-on activity, and then they apply what they're learning into the simulators. So now it becomes experiential learning. So like if they don't do the math right, they're not gonna get the results on the simulator. It's a way to get kids interested in mathematics because they see the results right away. Myself and probably you, we grow up to do math, but it's always something like, but what do I need this for, right?
Yes. I understand the practical applications. People say, why would I ever need calculus? Why would I never need algebra 3? When you see some of these things too, and like, oh, okay, this is how you apply it to these different areas. So I have another question, a follow-up from that. So what if there was an educator or a teacher or a school listening and they're like, wow, this is amazing. I want this for my students. How can someone get involved with you with kind of some
Yes. So if anybody's interested in the Sim for STEM program, we have a website, so you can reach us through the website. And in there, you see the 2 programs that we offer, which one is a curriculum sort of base, and the other one is more like a workshop.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I love when you find programs that inspire young people to help them navigate and figure out where their passions are. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing how to get involved. So can you talk a little bit about your proudest moment in your current role so far?
Well, of course, my racing career, I'm proud of all my titles, for sure. Because it's something that when you are little, you dream of, and then when you're able to achieve that, it makes you feel very good. So definitely all of that, and be a role model for other women that are interested in the sports. But like in the leadership roles that I cover right now, I really like the fact that if I have an idea, I really go for it. Most of the time there is up and downs. It's never a straight line, but be able to be a disruptor, and get people to then believe in what you're saying. That's definitely my proudest thing. Like show something that might be different and is off the wall, But when it works and see the people say, oh my God, this is so cool,
Yeah.
that make me feel very good.
Good. Almost kind of done with the section, but wanted to talk about the International Olympic Committee because it's recently embraced esports through the Olympic Esports series. And so where do you see sim racing fitting into the future of Olympics?
Yeah, so besides being the CEO of my company, I'm also part of the Global Sport Federation. My role there is to continue to expand the sim racing, but that also brings me connection and contact with the Esports Olympics. So the point of sim racing for me, it's very cool because it gives the opportunity to people that are still not convinced what esport is, to show it to them simply because everybody's been in the car. Just put them in a simulator and they will understand that it's actually, a sport. So for me, like sim racing, what is kind of like an introduction to what esport and also at the Olympic level could be for the population at large. But if you go down and you talk very like dedicated to sim, I feel like there is an opportunity for more women to be able to be noticed. Because even in real racing, a lot of time, the women, they don't get the same opportunity as the guys do. Because of the expense, they will have an opportunity to be noticed at the same level because we are starting from scratch, right? So for me, that's very important. And we are doing Init as a mandate to be able to do the Team USA Talent Scouts competitions. So we are in the middle of that. They're going to go on all this year, next year until 2027 when the Olympics are going to happen. So if anybody is listening out there, is a sim racer and for some reason it's not being in touch with what's happening with the talent scouts, go and find it because it is an opportunity for you to be on the list of athletes and then potentially be the one chosen to represent the country at the Olympics.
No, it's something I think just kind of listening to your journey and listening to all the things that you've done, one of the things that it's clear is that you've been a leader from the beginning. And so can you talk a little bit about your leadership style and what kind of leader that you feel that you're known for and that you are?
Yeah, it's a very good question and a little bit needed unpacking here because as you said, I started when I was very little and thanks to my parents, they put me to believe in myself, right? So therefore, as a leader, I do believe in myself. So if I have an idea, as we were talking about, of course, I do the research. I have teams, people with me. And if it makes sense, we go for it. I'm the leading voice and possibly the leading figure by bringing people with me. And that's incredibly important because for me, surround myself with people that are diverse from me, like it's absolutely magic. Because what I can see, it might be different than what somebody that grew up in a different country or have a different language or different culture than what I can think. So in the industry, I'm known to be like the one that really look into inclusivity for everybody. And I think the people that they don't, they're just missing out.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so I think that kind of leads into something really important, which is culture and company culture. And you already leaned in and said how important diversity is. And so as you're kind of building Init, can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, you just really touched on it. So I feel like we're guiding the conversation because as soon as it's in my head to ask you, you're already talking about it. So it's perfect.
Yeah, in it, we take pride on bringing in people from every different background or ethnicity or culture, because I personally believe that authenticity is important and give the chance to people to show up as they are. You learn a ton from them. A lot of time in life, you just need a little bit of that door to be open for you. And I was lucky enough to have doors open for me. So for me, it's important to pay it back. Of course, it's based on skills as well, but for me, everybody can get a chance to shine and be themselves. And I really, really care about them telling me if there is something that we are not doing right. And potentially, I'm different than you. So maybe I'll look at it in a different way, right? But come to me and tell me what you feel. Respect is the number one thing. But there is always room to having discussion and then improve. Because I believe that if you just think in one way, you're never going to grow.
I agree. And so this is a perfect pivot to now as we're in Pride Month. Can you talk about your identity and how that has impacted your career path and how that has influenced your approach to leadership, and kind of what does Pride Month mean to you?
Yes, well, of course, Pride Month is the best month in the year. Come on now,
Of course.
although I think there should be every month, Pride Month, if I have to say, because again, it brings back to the fact of inclusivity and give everybody space to be who they are. I think people should be themselves all the time, every month of the year. But beside that, for me, it's important. I'm part of the LGBT community. I'm married to a fantastic woman. For me, when I grow up and I understand that I was a lesbian, my parents embraced it, also because you can potentially understand that I am a hard-headed. So, there was like,
Oh, I didn't get that at all.
not at all, right? So there was not really much choice there for my parents. It is this or it is this, there is not any other way. They've been super supportive. Again, being Italians, coming from a conservative country, definitely was a shock to start. But they love me. If you are lucky enough to have loving parents and a loving group, there is no difference, right? But because of that and because of the sport, I always grow up by being authentically myself. So never question it. Every time I introduce myself to somebody and, potentially it comes out the fact that who you're dating or are you married, I have immediately I'm married to a fantastic woman. And when you do it like this, people, you catch them a little bit off their feet. So they don't know what to say anymore. So they're like, oh yeah, of course, no problem. Why not? Again, I'm lucky to be like this because I'm a confident person, but I do understand it's not easy.
So what advice do you have for someone that's out there that's struggling with identity, struggling with this, and especially now in this current climate and this environment with especially trans rights coming under attack? What advice would you give to one young person that wants to be themselves but is struggling with that?
Yes, I think the most important thing is, beside being yourself, is don't listen to others. Too often in this world, we seek approval from others, but in reality, you need to approve yourself. And once you get to that point, everything else, it doesn't matter, right? If you are capable to turn yourself onto that mentality, and it takes a lot of exercise, I have to say, but if you are comfortable with yourself and who you are, it doesn't matter how the world see you, because you have accepted yourself for who you are. However, we live in a very difficult times. So I always suggest, always be alert, because even if you don't care what other people think, there are a lot of bad people out there that can harm you. So if you are respectful, you are yourself, that's the only thing you can do. So accept yourself, be yourself, and then the world eventually is going to look at you and say, yeah, it's just Stefy or whatever your name is.
And so I want to round this out. Something that it sounds like you've had your entire life is community. So how important is community? How do you find that group of people that you can connect with? What are some things that you can recommend for that?
Yeah, I mean, we are social beings. So it is important to be surrounded ourselves like-minded people. But I also suggest to not shut off people that they don't look like you or they don't think like you, right? It's a balance at the end, right? If you find the people that are like you, become strong, and then open that door a little bit, always with caution, but open that door a little bit. And a lot of time you will be surprised on who is coming into your network. I think we live in a community. The world is a community. There are people out there. A lot of time people are shy to ask, don't do that. We are all people. And at the end, I want to believe that there is good in every one of us. So just give it a try.
Oh, I agree. I think sometimes you give people the chance to rise to the occasion. And then kind of talking about community, we're also talking about allyship. So how can other people be of service and kind of lean in and be open? I talk about allyships a lot because, from women, from being African-American, kind of all these types of things. What can people that are not kind of LGBTQ plus do to help?
It's an interesting question because I'm not in their shoes, so I'm not quite sure. But in a way, I would say the same thing that I say to LGBTQ plus community. Be open to diversity, nobody's going to bite you, like if you are
Yeah.
respectful and a good human being. So like just be open. Maybe culturally you're growing up by being embedded in your head into something that is negative. Like forget about that. People are people, and I feel like that it doesn't matter your sexual orientation, the color of your skin. If you're a good person and therefore you want to be an ally, you're welcome into the LGBTQ plus community. Just take the step.
I think that's a very important thing to do. Sometimes it's just about being open. And so when, like, as a Black woman, when people say, how can I help? It's just like, first, do no harm, right?
Yeah,
First,
exactly.
like, look at me as person, see kind of all the dimensions, see color, see all of these different things that are important, because those differences are the things that make us all unique, and kind of leaning into it and seeking understanding.
Yeah. And I believe also important is to listen. The opportunity to listen to others that they might be different than you, like, and give them the space to express themselves.
Yes, I mean, different people have kind of experienced life and experienced the world differently than you. And so being able to recognize that even if something doesn't impact you, that doesn't mean it's not impactful. Right?
Exactly.
It's something that you need to at least understand. Almost the end. I feel like I've really enjoyed this, but a couple of questions just about kind of reflection and looking forward. So you are already established this amazing legacy. When you're kind of thinking about kind of the future, what else do you want to accomplish? What are some of the things that you see on the horizon for yourself?
Well, I wanted to continue to break barriers for women and minorities because I think it's important, and we are not quite there yet. And unfortunately, the world seems to go backwards right now. I just continue to push on that and not take a no for an answer. Continue to get the sense of community on anything that I can dream up that can help others to become themselves, rise for themselves, and potentially, get to where they want in life. And one thing that I like to share with everybody is always like, follow your passion. Follow your passion. Find what that passion is and follow it. Because if you do that, you will never feel like you are working your life, because you're going to be doing something that you love. And for me, I always do that. I reinvent myself, but always around the passion. It's very important because it's very fulfilling. So that's my biggest suggestion. Follow your passion.
No, I love that. And that's almost the perfect way to end. My last question for you is, what level up mindset or habit that you would urge listeners to adopt, no matter what their field? And so it sounds like follow your passion, but like, what are some of the things that you can kind of do to kind of make that happen?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, follow your passion and also perseverance. So never give up. Because as in racing, you always say you crash 10 times and you get up 11. Life is like that too. So you should always continue to come back and do what you really love in life. There are going to be up and downs. It's not a straight line. But if you can keep pushing and be authentic to yourself, you're going to get there.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Stefy, for joining me on the Level Up with Wondr podcast for this Pride Month episode. This has been a great conversation, getting to know you a little bit more. And I think it's just been so inspirational. And I'm sure our listeners will feel the same way. So I appreciate you being open, sharing your story, and leaning in and giving advice. It's been very inspirational for me. And I really appreciate your time. And I'm glad I had this time with you today.
It's been a pleasure, Anika, and I hope that everybody takes some goods out of this. If you want to follow me, I'm, of course, on all the social media with my name at Stefy Bau. I'm very happy to have done this podcast with you, and thank you so much.
No, this is great. Thanks to you again for being part of the Level Up with Wondr podcast. And I definitely hope that there may be some collaborations with us in the future.
Yes, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Level Up with Wondr. Visit wondrnation.com/level up for more podcast episodes about how we're reimagining the gaming entertainment industry. Want to level up your business? Visit our contact page at wondrnation.com to inquire about our strategic consulting or management services.